Let me tell you about a number. $2,299,998.85. That is not the GDP of a small nation. That is not the budget of a Hollywood film. That is the listed price on FIFA's own official platform for 4 seats behind the goal at the World Cup final. $2.3 million per ticket. And while those listings sat live on the official website, visible to anyone with an internet connection and a willingness to feel genuinely sick about it, FIFA's legal team was busy sending emails to 60 football supporters around the world. Those 60 people had done something extraordinary. They had found a glitch on FIFA's own checkout system that gave them tickets for $0. Free, confirmed, official, and FIFA's response was simple. Pay us within 7 days or lose your seats. That contrast. $2.3 million on one screen. A demand letter for money FIFA's own system failed to charge on another. That is not a story about two separate problems. That is the same story. And today we are going to tell it completely. The 2026 FIFA World Cup was supposed to be historic for the right reasons. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 countries, 16 cities, the largest World Cup ever staged. Infantino said it would flip the country upside down. He said it would convert millions of Americans to the sport. He said the demand would be unlike anything football had ever seen. And in one very specific sense, he was right about demand. Because what the last 6 months have proven, beyond any reasonable doubt, is that FIFA had an extraordinary demand problem. Not the kind of demand problem where too many fans want tickets. The other kind. The kind where the organization running the tournament treated every single supporter, from the fan in Buenos Aires saving for 3 years to the family in Manchester who booked flights 12 months early, as a revenue unit to be maximized rather than a human being the tournament was supposed to serve. And the ticketing system FIFA built for 2026, the most commercially aggressive in World Cup history, is where that philosophy became most visible, most measurable, and most damaging. Here is what FIFA did that no World Cup has ever done before. They introduced dynamic pricing. For those unfamiliar, dynamic pricing means ticket prices are not fixed. They move. They respond to demand signals, inventory levels, and purchasing patterns in real time. The same seat costs different amounts depending on when you buy it, how many others are buying, and what the algorithm decides the market will bear at that precise moment. Airlines use it, hotels use it, concert venues use it. FIFA used it on the World Cup for the first time in the tournament's 96-year history. And here is what that decision produced in practice. Supporters who looked at prices in January, made budgets, made plans, told their families they were going, came back in March to complete their purchase and found prices had moved. Not slightly, an average increase of 34% across main ticket categories between the opening of sales and the weeks before the tournament. 34%. If you budgeted $500 for a ticket in January, FIFA's algorithm had turned that into $670 by March. If you budgeted $1,000, you were now looking at $1,340. And here is the specific number that captures what this meant for one of the most globally followed football nations on earth. Category 1 seats for England's opening group match against Croatia at Dallas Stadium, £1,431. Not for the final, not for a semi-final. For a group stage match, £1,431 for one seat. The average weekly wage in England is roughly £640. FIFA priced a group stage ticket at more than twice the average weekly wage of the supporters that nation's team plays for. And the market responded exactly the way markets respond when prices exceed what real buyers will pay. It went quiet. Arlington, Texas. A T&T Stadium, one of the most spectacular sports venues ever built, a cathedral of glass and steel, capacity over 100,000, 9 World Cup matches scheduled, including a quarterfinal. The city had been preparing for years. Businesses invested, hotels staffed up, local authorities committed resources on the assumption that 9 World Cup matches would deliver a sustained wave of visitors and revenue. Then, city officials sat down for a council meeting and were told something nobody in that room was ready to hear. More than 350,000 tickets for AT&T Stadium were still unsold. Not a handful, not a manageable shortfall. 350,000 seats across 9 matches without buyers in a stadium the watching world was supposed to fill. Arlington's deputy city manager made the picture even clearer. Around 700,000 total tickets available across all matches. Between 35% and 50% sold at the point the report was delivered. Which means, at the lower estimate, close to half of every ticket for every World Cup match in Dallas was still sitting in inventory. But the number that tells the story most cleanly is not Dallas, it's Tampa. June 6, 2026, 5 days before the tournament opened. England versus New Zealand. A warm-up match at Raymond James Stadium, 69,000 seat capacity, one of the largest in North American sport. 13,000 tickets sold for an England match in an American city, 5 days before the World Cup. More than 50,000 empty seats for England. Now hold that image and place it next to this one. March 2026, Wembley Stadium, England versus Uruguay. 80,000 supporters, full, loud. The atmosphere that football at this level is supposed to produce. The distance between those two images, 80,000 in London and 13,000 in Tampa, is not a story about English fan apathy. It is a precise measurement of how far FIFA's pricing and logistics had placed this tournament beyond the reach of the people who love the sport most. Now here's where the story gets darker. Because while Dallas sat with 350,000 unsold seats and Tampa prepared to host England in front of more empty chairs than full ones, something else was happening on FIFA's own ticketing platform that nobody at FIFA has explained to this day. Analysts who professionally track ticket inventory for major sporting events were monitoring FIFA's official system in the days before the tournament. Standard practice, publicly available data. What they observed was this. Around 74,000 tickets were visible and available through the official platform. Then, between one observation period and the next, the number dropped to 44,000, then to under 30,000 in a short window, without announcement, without explanation. The founder of the tracking service was direct. There was no plausible scenario, he said, in which the drop represented fans suddenly purchasing 40,000 tickets. Something else had happened. Two possibilities circulated among analysts and supporters. Either those tickets had been quietly allocated to sponsors, corporate partners, or other institutional parties, effectively removed from public sale without disclosure, or the inventory had been deliberately made less visible to manage the public perception of demand. FIFA said nothing. The tickets disappeared. No statement, no clarification, no transparency. And into that silence stepped the attorneys general of New York and New Jersey, whose formal investigation into FIFA's ticketing practices was already underway, and who had identified exactly this kind of behavior in their subpoenas. Artificial scarcity, the management of visible inventory to create false impressions of availability and demand. Whether the vanishing 40,000 tickets represent that kind of management is precisely what their investigation will determine. What is not in dispute is that FIFA, at a moment when transparency was the single thing supporters and investigators were asking for, chose silence. And then came the moment that captured everything about FIFA's relationship with its own supporters in a single episode. Around 60 football fans, from different countries, different backgrounds, different levels of football obsession, went through the official checkout process on FIFA's official platform. They followed every step. They received confirmation. The price charged was $0. For one brief, extraordinary moment, 60 people had the greatest bargain in World Cup history. Then FIFA contacted them. On June 3rd, the governing body sent each affected supporter an email. It explained that a checkout error had resulted in their tickets being allocated at no charge. It said it regretted the inconvenience. It also said the tickets remained reserved, but that each supporter had exactly 7 days to pay the correct original price or lose their seats entirely. Think carefully about what that sequence of events communicates. You completed an official process on the official platform. You received official confirmation. And the organization running the tournament then reversed that confirmation and demanded money its own system failed to collect. FIFA's error, FIFA's reversal, FIFA's demand. And while those 60 emails were being sent, while FIFA was chasing supporters for money its own checkout process didn't charge, the resale listings for the World Cup final were sitting live on that same official platform. $2,299,998.85 per ticket. FIFA chasing 60 fans for a glitch that saved them a few $100s. FIFA hosting resale listings at $2.3 million per seat on the same website. Those are not two separate stories. They are one story about an organization that has decided, in ways large and small, in ways worth millions and in ways worth nothing, that the tournament belongs to the market, not to the supporters, not to the game. To whoever can extract the most from it. Here is what FIFA built for 2026, a dynamic pricing model that raised costs 34% between January and March, a resale environment that allowed $2.3 million listings on its own platform, a ticketing system that gave 60 supporters free tickets and then demanded the money back within a week, and 350,000 unsold seats in a single city, Dallas, that had spent years and billions preparing to be part of the greatest football tournament on earth. None of those are accidents. None of those are isolated failures. They are the accumulated product of a commercial strategy that looked at the World Cup, the most watched sporting event in human history, the tournament that belongs to every football fan who has ever painted their face or missed work or cried in a bar at a 90th minute goal, and decided its primary purpose was extraction. The football, when it happens, is extraordinary. It always is at this level. The players are real. The goals are real. The emotion is real. But the supporters filing into those stadiums paid more than any World Cup supporters in history to be there. And the ones who aren't there, the ones in Buenos Aires, in Lagos, in Tehran, in Manchester, who looked at the prices and the logistics and made the only rational decision available to them, they are part of this story too. FIFA made a choice about what this tournament was for, and the empty seats, the vanishing tickets, the $2.3 million listings, and the demand letters sent to 60 fans for a mistake FIFA's own system made. Those are the answer the market gave back. Here's what I want to ask you directly. Have you been priced out of this tournament? Did you look at the numbers, the tickets, the flights, the hotels, and make the decision that the value simply wasn't there? Or did you find a way in despite everything? And more importantly, do you think FIFA, when the final whistle blows in New Jersey and the commercial revenues are counted, will look at those empty seats and change anything? Or will the money be large enough that none of this conversation matters to the people making these decisions? Leave your answer in the comments. These are the questions worth asking, and I read every single one. If this kind of football coverage is worth your time, a like costs you nothing and helps more than you think. Subscribe if you want every development from here to the final covered the way football supporters deserve. The tournament is here, the football is real, but so is everything we just talked about.